Welcome, welcome back to Crafting a Meaningful Life. I'm glad you're here because you know what that means to me? It means that that's what you're about. You're about crafting your meaningful life. And that's why you're here and I'm here. I'm still in the middle of it, you know. I know you think I'm a has-been, but I'm still in the middle of crafting my own life. And I am loving every single day that I make those decisions about what my life is going to look like. Well, because I'm in the middle of that, I decided to have this absolutely amazing guest, Jennifer Anderson, and she's going to walk us through the art of crafting our own personal brand and talk about her book, Call to Compassion. So welcome with me. My guest today is Jennifer Anderson. Welcome, Jen.
Hey, thanks, Mary. So good to be with you.
So you used to live in Utah. Now you live in Missouri.
I do, yes.
And just kind of around the Ozark, Branson area.
Yeah, yeah, I do.
And as we were talking before the show started, the one thing you were surprised to learn is that I'm actually a Midwestern girl at heart, born and raised in Iowa. Spent a lot of time in the Ozarks. I know right where Branson is. Yeah.
That's so fun. It's amazing how people have connections to the Midwest, though. Since I've moved here, I thought, oh, I'm moving to the middle of nowhere. And there are a lot of people who have connections to the
Yeah.
Midwest. Wow.
Yeah. And I don't regret any of my time in the Midwest. I think it's part of why I really am as solid as I am because I was born and raised in an area where the values are much like mine are still today. I was raised with values that are still important to me. Those values of hard work, integrity, compassion. Even though I definitely not as conservative as I was raised, but I understand what it's like to work in the middle and to see value on both sides. And I think that's kind of came from my time in the Midwest. So how are things in Missouri with that?
It's great. It's awesome. We definitely are enjoying a different pace of life and a spaciousness too. So we moved here. We wanted some land, and so we found. So I'm originally actually from San Francisco Bay Area, and now
Oh,
being in the Midwest, I'm like, holy macaroni, where did I move? Like, all right, I live in an area that has one of the highest concentration of Amish people in the United States.
there were a lot of Amish where I lived, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, so it's not uncommon for me to be driving from our property into town, because by the way, we go into town for supplies because we are living the country life. Uh-huh. And so, but it's not uncommon for me to see Amish on a buggy, and
Yep.
we got, patiently let them get over so we can drive around them. And but they're like hardcore. Mary, they are out there,
Yeah.
sun, rain, sleet, whatever, and they are in uncovered buggies. I'm
Yeah.
like in my comfortable minivan going, what? Like, good on you, people.
They
It's not.
really do have a core commitment to living that kind of life that is it's different than being conservative. It's that holding on to the values that are living the simple life. That
Yeah.
they're not about things and cars and the value of having a family that's close. In many regards, their values are much like mine. But I don't think I can go back to that position.
Exactly. They don't have a
Yeah,
I'm like, what? They don't, I mean, yeah. They don't, I have friends of mine here in town who have Amish next door, and they have a daughter who requires medicine for her brain, and the medicine has to be kept cold. It has to be refrigerated.
oh, and they
They
don't
don't
have
have
electricity.
So
Right.
what they do is they go over to my friend's house who they have the large like the big freezer, you buy half of
Yep.
a cow and you get it all cut up and you put it in your big freezer and you got it ready to go.
From the
So
locker.
yeah, from the locker, yes. And so they have these big 1 gallon size jugs of water that they'll take over to the locker. They'll put them in there, freeze them. So they'll go and they'll take two at a time, but they'll go and they'll swap them out every other day. So if they didn't have a neighbor like that who had the electricity, I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
what they would do. So it's kind of, so there's some interesting nuances about
Some
that.
challenges there, pros and cons certainly on both sides.
Yeah.
Well, Jennifer, as I read through your bio, I was thought, well, she just must have started your career when you were like 12 because it says you've had 26 years of experience in I'm like, well, she doesn't look like she's, in her 50s, so she must have started when she was 12, but 26 years in this area of being a leadership career consultant. And I think that is, so explain to my listeners exactly what that is and what you do.
Sure, absolutely. And by the way, when I turned 50, I'm like, whoa, where did I get to 50 this year? Right? Like, so
Oh,
anyhow,
yeah.
yeah, it was one of those things of, oh, we're here. We're at the half century mark. Okay, great. Let's do this, people. But thank you for acknowledging, because I sometimes stop and forget a bit that I've got a quarter of a century of helping people to figure out who they are and
Yeah.
to leverage that so that they can be better leaders. And I love that opportunity now to look back and to think about all these leaders that I've worked with who, for a vast majority of them, did not know what their personal brand is. They're like, I don't know. They're like, I'm just getting up in the morning, I'm doing work. They're towing the company line, so to speak. But inside of each of us, Mary, we have our personal brand. It's who we are. It's how we show up. It's that mark we want to make in the world, the legacy that we want to leave behind. It's an important part about every single person, regardless if you're in a leadership position or not. We all have a personal brand. And just so you know, when I'm thinking of personal brand, it's not who we are at work or who we are at home. It's this combined circle that all comes
Yes.
together, right? It's not half and half. It's
Right.
not like we wake up and it's Monday morning and we put on like this version of ourselves and we're like, ta ta da, I'm going to be Monday Mary, and then on Saturday you put on a different version. You're like, ta ta da, now I'm going to be Saturday Mary. I'm sorry, that's extremely exhausting to live that way.
Yeah.
You
I
can't. It's
know because I did.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard and
I,
it
yeah.
sucks. And your soul is like, what is going on? And other people around you are like, what is going on? So when it comes to leadership, consulting, and advice, one of the big things I work with people, again, let's get your personal brand nailed down first and then build upon it. So it's kind of like building a house. Anybody who's going to build a house in an effective way knows that, first of all, you draft up some plans, just saying, start with a plan, but then you dig out your basement first. And then on top of that, you're going to build the house, right? Because if you try to build the house without the foundation, we all know what happens to those walls. They'll just come crumbling down, right? It's not going to have anything to sit on. So I'd like to first work with people. Let's get that foundation established, that really good bottom layer. And then from there, you can build upon it. So, you might have somebody who wants to write a book or somebody who wants to get promoted or someone who wants to start a business or whatever. All of those things get a lot easier because you have clarity when you know what your personal brand is. So that's a core part of the work that I do with people. And then we get to roll up our sleeves and strategize around, okay, now how are we going to make it happen? Where are we going? What's the next steps? But it's great because we can base it off of that foundation first.
Well, obviously, you're in high demand as a speaker. You have worked for many national, international companies. You are published author in Forbes magazine, as well as having your own book, The
Yeah.
Call for Compassion. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. But
Sure.
you've been in this field long enough that you are just kind of a renowned expert in this field of personal brand. So let's talk about that first, and then I'll talk about Call for Compassion.
Sure.
So your personal brand. You are somewhat familiar with me, not completely. I mean, it's not like, you're my bestie and you follow me, everything I do when I do. But we all have a personal brand. And when we can bring that into alignment with our personal lives and our public lives, and we start down that road of living a life of integrity, I think that is when our personal brand really can blossom.
Sure. Yeah.
So, what would you say is my personal brand?
Oh, girl, you're putting me on the spot.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so to be really clear again, when I think about personal brand, to me it's a simple statement. Like if I
Yep.
say if I say Nike to you, Mary, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Tennis shoes, sports shoes,
Yeah,
cutting
exactly.
edge. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. But there's a little phrase that goes along with Nike.
Oh yeah, do it.
Just do it, right?
Just do
So
it. Yep.
if I put the Nike swoosh up here, in front of me or something, and you start like, yep, just do it. And yes, you think of the tennis shoes, right?
Right.
Or you think of maybe a favorite sports player or something like that, right? And
And the
so
tennis shoes, I think, are such a great thing for them to be associated with because they give me that sense of I'm ready.
I know, right?
When I put
Yes,
on my tennis shoes, I just like suddenly, wow, it's like when I put on my
it's like,
hiking boots.
let's do
I'm
this.
ready. I'm going
Oh,
to do
for
it.
sure,
You bet.
for sure. So, Mary, the last time you and I shared a stage together, if you will, I was actually pregnant with my now 9-year-old daughter, which is
Oh my
so
gosh.
funny. Like 10 years ago, so nuts, right? And so you may not remember, but I'm 5'8", so I'm just a little bit taller than you, just a
Yes.
little,
Yep.
right? And so, although I think you were
3 inches
probably
taller. Yep.
yeah, I was saying, although I think you were sporting some pretty fabulous high heels, but anyhow,
Probably. Probably.
probably. And so, but I'm 5'8", and I suck at basketball. I do. I do. But I watch those Nike commercials, and they have these women that are athletic lionesses that are out there just driving hard, and these commercials, and they show these gorgeous muscles, and they're sweating in beautiful ways, and they've got their hair pulled back, and they just look like elegant athletes, right?
Right,
I
right.
look at that and I think, oh, I'm going to buy me some Nike shoes, and I'm going to just do it. I'm going to be that amazing woman out on the basketball court. No, it's not going to happen, right? But Nike has masterfully helped us to figure out, hey guys, just buy the shoes or buy the swimsuit or buy the cleats or buy the shorts or buy the leggings or buy the t-shirt, buy the sweatshirt, buy the whatever. And then you too can just get your butt off the couch and go do it, right? I mean, that's like
Yeah.
Nike, like they've figured it out, right? They're great at, masterful at marketing. So I'm taking that back to you, Miss Mary, here, since you've put me on the spot and
Yeah,
said, Jen.
absolutely put you on the spot.
Yes, exactly. So again, personal brand, to me, it's what's that succinct statement, right? The just do it, if you will, right? So Nike's is just do it. And so for Mary, crafts, I would say, I would almost, I would almost take the word craft and make it into an acronym for you. And so, like, the first word of C would probably be compassion, right? Because I know your big humanitarian heart, right? And then R would be all about relationships, because I know how you're all about going deep and connecting, but you also connect with people really fast, right? Like you're right there with them. I would say A for you would be all in, like whatever you're in, you're all in, which I know has also come back to bite you in the rear before, because you've been hurt by some people, right? When you've given them your heart and your soul. And I would say F, fun. I mean, Mary, you were just so fun. I mean, seriously. I was like, what is this lady going to show up looking like when I, do this
Oh,
interview?
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, fun, 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 fun. I love it. I love that about you. It's always like, I think we were all dying to see what your wedding photos look like, because we're like, oh, we know this lady's this is gonna be fabulous. And so I don't know, maybe F might have to be fabulous. I don't know, but we're gonna go with fun. And then I would say on T for you would be together. I think you're really big. To me, it's a bit different than the R relationship. To me, I think you're really good about bringing groups of people together to accomplish things with a vision. So that would be my first. I mean, you and I have never sat down and had any kind of strategy calls about, your personal brand, but I would go something off of that. Would probably be a
Yeah.
starting place.
Okay, now I'm going to throw a loop at you because my name has an S on the end of it.
Oh, that's right. I always forget
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
Okay, S. So let me see here. The I would need to think about what the word, something like something around like the word something, if you will. It's like um mm, Because I feel like you have this really kind of can-do attitude. Like there's something we can do. There's something somehow, like, be it little, big, there's something that can happen. And so I think there would be something to that piece of it, right? Which is a
Yeah,
bit of
it's
like the go and do, the Mary Crafts that we love, where you're like fist in the air, charging ahead, like, let's do it, you know? And so I think it would be something like that. And forgive the double entendre there of something, something, but yeah, it would be something like
I
that.
love it. I love it. Well, obviously, you're very good at what you do, Jen. So, as I have pondered, this is a very personal podcast. As I have pondered at 71,
Yeah.
is it time for me just to begin to play small? I know that sounds odd for me, but it's really who wants to hear from, this older, so mature woman, so what would seemingly be out of touch with what's hip and now. And is it time just to stay home? Just be here with my husband. And as I've pondered that, and I've been back and forth 100 times, I have to tell you, back and forth 100 times, I decided that who I am is never someone who wants to leave anything on the table. I want to burn up all the fuel in the tank when I'm going down to that other existence. Or going hopefully up to that other existence. I want to make sure that every ounce of gas has been played and every song has been sung. And so I decided I was going to jump into and launch another part of Mary Crafts Inc. And that issue of personal brand has been right here in my face. And I think it's something that is probably, even if it's not in people's consciousness, is in everybody's face at some point. How do people perceive me?
Right. Yes.
What is my brand? And so, as the people who are listening and wanting to step into understanding what they're putting out to the world, because that determines, of course, a large part of what they're going to receive.
Right.
What are the first steps of creating your own personal brand?
Yeah, good questions. Thank you for that. And I'm really glad that you're not just sitting at home, by the way. The world needs more of you, Mary. Just keep shining light, sweetheart. Maybe that's your S. Maybe it's shine, right? Just shine, light the way. And so, so a key thing that's really important for people about personal brand is like, just first of all, recognizing that you actually have one. I cannot tell you how many times over the years I've had conversations with people and they're like, I don't have a personal brand. I'm not like a Kardashian or, something. I'm like, no. Everybody has it. So I think first of all, it's just realizing that you do have one. And then it's kind of like, well, you know how this is, right? If you're heavy and you just don't even like think about how heavy you are, and then all of a sudden one day you wake up and you're like, I am so uncomfortable in my body. I can't stand this anymore, right? But for how many years do many of us stay uncomfortable in our bodies, right? There's a lot of people that do that. Okay. And so, and I know you've had an amazing transformation, with your body over the years and all those things. And so, but where I'm going with it is just first of all, recognizing that you do have a brand. Okay. And then the next thing that happens is recognizing, but how do you have to look at yourself, right? And say, okay, how do I want to show up in the world, right? What is it that I want? And a lot of times people don't slow down to figure that out, Mary. They don't. Because they're so busy, right? I mean, hello, to-do lists. Yes. So how do you want to show up is the next thing too of, okay, what does that need to look like? And that's where a lot of times when people hire me for personal brand strategy, there's this whole process I take people through of, we've got to look at what is it that you're trying to do with life? And so many people, when they start that process with me, a vast majority of them say, I haven't thought about this forever. For a very, very long time, And so, and I do, most of the people that I work with tend to be more mature in their careers. It's very rare that I work with someone who's like just coming out of college, they're like, I got it, I'm good, they're feeling all good about stuff. But it's people who typically have had some experience And they can look back in the past and say, I don't want to keep doing that. I got to do something different. I need to show up differently. So so again, they're at that point where, okay, I haven't stopped to think about who am I. A lot of them haven't thought about since maybe they were in college or something, or maybe had a big life transition, like getting married or getting divorced or having a first child or, something like that. And so that's a big part of it, is who are you and what are your values? What's that legacy that you want to leave behind? There's a lot to that you have to know that. You got to know what it is, which does not mean I want to be an author. That does not mean I want to run for public office. That does not mean I want a job title. It's not about those things. It's just simply, who are you?
Yeah, it's not about what you do. It's about who you are.
Your being. Yeah, exactly. I know I have a 9-year-old daughter, right? And so when I hear people say things like, so what do you want to do when you grow up? And I'm like, I just want to, throat punch them. Because I'm like, can we stop this? Like, when do we stop asking, what do you want to do? Right?
Yeah.
And
who are you going to be?
Who are you going to be? Right.
Yeah.
Well, how do you want to be in life? And so even I always tell people, when you're going to a networking event, I said, please, for the love, don't ask anybody the question, so what do you do?
Yeah.
I'm like, can we just stop, for the love, right? And so you can find out so much better stuff about people, about why are you at this event? What's going on in your life? Tell me, what brought you here? Who's the speaker you're most excited to hear from at this conference? Or, like something like that. Way better, way more interesting conversation than what do you do?
What do you do? Yeah. Yeah. And you're either going to get this much of an answer or this much of an answer, more than you wanted, And, but I love that, I love asking my grandchildren, so tell me who you're going to be when you grow up.
Mm-hmm. Right.
What things are really important to you. And that my grandchildren, obviously, are fruits of my loins as well. Their parents have well inducted them into, the being part rather than doing part. I was just talking with a friend of mine yesterday who I've been kind of walking just a little bit through, some support issues of transitioning. She's in a transition in her life right now.
Okay.
And she said, these are the 3 things that I'm thinking about for 2025. And the last one was, she said, how did she put this? She said, I want to know what people are thinking when I walk into a room.
Mm.
And so I pondered on, I happen to be at the gym, I'm on the treadmill. And we're texting, so every once in a while I would text her back. And I'm walking and I'm pondering that question.
Yeah.
And I wrote back to her and I said, what if we reframe that number 3? And rather than, you want to know what people think when you walk into a room, could we reframe it to, how do you show up when you walk into a room? Mm-hmm. What do you see? Who do you see walking into that room? Mm-hmm. And rather than what the outside world is thinking, I wanted her to take a look at what she's thinking, what what she's putting out. And I do think that's such a huge piece to brand.
Sure. Right.
It has to be how we feel about ourselves. Is that a part of that, Jen?
It's so true. Absolutely. Because the energy that we bring, and anybody who's listening or watching this later, and Mary, I know you've experienced this before too. When you walk into a room and 2 people have been arguing, but they stopped arguing like right before you walked into a room, that real wonky energy that you feel?
Yeah.
You walk in and it's not just like the looks on their face, or like maybe they've kind of pulled it together a little bit, like, okay, family's coming over, just stop, like we're going to pause this right now and we're going to continue whatever later. And so, but in that moment, like the new person that's coming into it, they feel an energy. They were not there. They did not witness the fight or the argument or the disagreement, like whatever it was. They did, but they feel that energy. They totally do. And so they may not be able to put their finger on it, right? But they're like, something's up. Okay. Like just like inside of them. So the same thing when you're walking into a room, right? And this friend of yours who, I get it. Like she wants to know, what is my reputation out there? What are people thinking? Because then she wants to make some adjustments, right? Probably from that, and make sure she's staying in alignment.
Yep.
However, like you definitely gave her some good guidance of, okay, but how do you want to show up? Right? Because
Yeah.
that energy that you were aware of yourself and you know what you need to do, then you're going to show up, and then it almost turns into, well, love me or hate me, this is who I am. Right? Because not all of us are going to be loved by everybody. It's
Right.
just not going to happen, right?
In
And
fact, no
so,
one is loved by everyone.
no, 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 they really aren't. They
I
aren't.
mean, even Mother Teresa had her haters.
Right? Yeah, exactly. I love Mother Teresa. Oh, she's on my top 10 list of people I'm going to hang out with when I get to
Yeah.
heaven. And so, but I think that it's really important that we recognize that. But again, if you don't first slow down, kind of come back to the stuff we were talking about a couple of minutes ago, if you don't first slow down and think about what's that mark I want to make on the world, what's that legacy I want to leave behind. I'm not talking about legacy like your name on the side of a hospital wing. I'm not talking about that kind of legacy, people. I mean, if you can do that, fabulous. Good, write the check, do the things. You know what I mean? But for every one person who can do that, there are millions, hundreds of thousands who can't do that, who won't do that, right? But you still are having conversations with people. You're still having interactions with people. And how do you want them to feel when you're around, right? And so
Oh,
again,
bingo.
it's
Bingo.
so,
I love that.
right? It's all of that.
How do you want people to feel when they are around you? I love that.
Yeah, right.
I don't
And
know if
then,
I've
then
ever
you can make
pondered
adjustments.
that.
Yeah, think about that, right? Then you can make adjustments. Then for some people, it starts turning into, oh, no wonder I hate my job. I gotta find a new job. Or, oh, I keep getting passed up for a promotion. Well, why? What am I doing? Right?
Yeah.
And I've had some really profound conversations with people who have great corporate careers. I mean, they're doing well and they're taking care of their family monetarily, and you know, they're traveling and doing things. But there's like something that's a disconnect for them. And they're like, I've checked the boxes in so many other ways, but they're starting to realize I don't feel great. And this isn't, oh, I got aches and pains in my body. It's not that, it's the emotional. Something's off. And when we start doing that kind of work, that's when we can really start to shine, right? We can really start to light up the room in a very different way.
I love that concept. And I think that when people are, especially at work, when they show up as their authentic selves,
Yes, please.
people are naturally drawn to them.
Yeah.
When they show up trying to be something that they're not, but they're just making it up as they do, there's a distance that we create from people.
Right.
But when I sense, and I don't care if a person is a wallflower or the center of attention, if that is their authentic self, I feel comfortable in their energy.
Sure.
And I can sit next to them and enjoy them no matter what it is, their persona, as long as it's authentic. But the
Sure.
person who is wanting to be the center of attention and is the wallflower, now that person, I never feel comfortable next to their energy because it's never settled. It's
Right,
not
yeah.
authentic.
Right,
And the
exactly.
person who's in the center of the room, gathering all attention, if they're really an introvert but are so afraid of being invisible that they push themselves to the center of the room, that just doesn't come across as authentic either.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. And in certain groups of people, they may not understand where you're coming from yet. And so I have experienced this myself, having moved to a new community. I'm actually really conscientiously thinking about what is that brand that I'm putting out there, because these people don't know me from Adam, right?
Right.
It's not like I moved to an area where I have other friends and family who lived here. I mean, literally, I didn't know anybody at all. And so there have been times where people, like, there's a group of ladies from church are like, hey, let's go to lunch. I'm like, fabulous, let's do it. And I thought about it when I was in the car driving over there. I thought, okay, this is my first opportunity in a pretty intimate environment. There was just a few of us that got together. How do I really want them to perceive me, right? What are the stories I want to say about myself, right? What's that energy that I want to bring? And so, but again, when you're clear about that, so I'm clear, my brand is Activate. I'm all about getting people going. That's my brand. Okay. Groups going, individual going, I am all about that stuff. Okay. And so I thought about it, and they, for some reason, like some scenario, the question kind of came up about some things that I have done previously because they knew that I had moved from other place and whatnot. And so they wanted to just know a little bit about some of the things. And I know my stories and I know where I've made impact. And I thought, I'm like, you know what? This is my chance to let them know. This wasn't me like, well, look at me, ladies, you know, da, da, da. Like, it wasn't like that. It's more just confidently, not arrogantly, everybody. Let's hear the difference. Confidently standing in, I know who I am and I know the value that I bring. And that is great. And from that, I've had some really great conversations with these women. So that was 6-ish months ago, right? There's still a lot more time to go of living around each other and interacting with each other. You know, who knows all the other things that are going to happen. But I'm really aware of the fact that, like, I know good things. There's good stuff. And there's, again, most of these people, they have no idea of the fact that I've spoken on stages and I've been podcasting since 2010, and then I'm an author, and then I produce these amazing, you know, products and classic. They don't know anything about me, and they don't need to know that. It's okay. They'll know it when they're supposed to know it, right? And so I think sometimes for people when they're really feeling uncomfortable in their skin, it's because they don't know their stories first. They don't know those things that are really beautiful about them. And the more you're clear about that, the more you really own your stories and you know what you're about, then you can weave it really organically and authentically, to use your word authentic. You can weave it authentically into conversations and not have it come off like all smarmy and just like, ugh, you know, this person's like, you know, again, they're like, look at me.
Let me tick off all the boxes so you can make sure you know everything fabulous about me.
Yeah. Right, exactly. Yeah,
and if sometimes I'm goaded into doing that, you know, this is like, well, so like, you know, what awards and blah blah. And like, when you're goaded into that, then I want to make sure I also include. And I just started wearing a shaper bra because I'm telling you, those other things that cut into my back fat, I don't really like those. And so if you haven't tried a shaper bra, it's coming for you. Embrace it. Do you know what I mean? And they're just like,
right? Huh?
Did she just talk to us about her bra and back fat? You know what I mean? You got to make it real. You got to keep it real.
Right. I know. We need to, for sure. But you know those stories about yourself, Mary, right? You know this. And you confidently say those kinds of things. And then it just helps people to be more endeared to you, right? Because you're very real. And you can drop into those conversations, right? Like I said, the R in crafts, those relationships, right? You can drop into those conversations really quickly and meet people where they're at. So, but I don't, I couldn't imagine you walking here like, so are you?
It's not my opening statement.
Like you come up to me, grab them in the back. How's your back fat right now? How you doing, huh?
Just working with that. All right, let's talk for a second about this incredible book. I was first of all, I was dumbfounded at how many things that you are offering that are free. We are going to include a lot of those links at the end of this podcast so the listeners can find your website, can find where to buy your book on Amazon, can find some of the direct links to some of the things you're offering that are free. I signed up for one, and I already immediately got an email that just said, "Hi, welcome." And this is this worksheet you're going to work through to really help establish your personal brand and to bring your awareness. I was like, I can't wait to do that, And so you're offering so many things to people. And this book being one of them. Now, when I first read the title, and I was like, call for compassion. And of course, I immediately went to my humanitarian work, and I thought, okay, it's about bringing compassion to the world stage. But then as I started reading, it was completely different. So I want you to share with my listeners what this book is about and who the target audience is.
Okay, sure, you bet. Thank you so much. So, all right. So call for compassion. Uh, this I love sharing how the genesis of this book came to be because we can all flash back to the COVID days, right? So 2020 just kicked our trash so bad, right? And then I felt prompted to write this book because in 2021 I was doing a bunch of consulting with international teams, and there was a particular group, had a team of managers based in India. And in 2021,
Mm,
India had its third wave of COVID that came through and decimated so many more
yeah.
people on top of so much bad that had already happened. And I'll never forget, Mary, I was on a Zoom call with a particular manager. He's about 60 years old. In his organization that he was managing, he's got about 180 people. And so then, and he had other like managers at different levels and whatnot, but he was exposed to a lot of people. And then because of that, subsequently, their family members, because as COVID was coming through, and in India, there's a lot of multi-generational homes. That's really
Right.
common to have three generations living
Yeah.
in a house. And so, and also very tight quarters, and some of these cities are, I mean, people are just right on top of each other, right? And so it's a reality in some of these third world parts of countries and whatnot. And he was literally in tears, just bawling. Here's this guy, corporate, college educated, managing and leading great people. I mean, he's loved by his people. He was not like a cranky pants manager. I mean, come on, we know some of those people. And so he's a good human being, right? And he was just like, I am so sad. I don't know how to help. And then the next day I had a conversation with another manager from this team in India, different division, but same group of leaders, if you will. Same thing. Well educated, corporate, many people reporting to him, etc., and just in tears. And I just gave them space. I just said, okay, just talk to me, share with me what's going on. Because these are men who are not going to turn around to their direct reports or even their peers at work to say, this sucks, I just need to cry. Like they're not going to do it, right? And
Right.
likely they're not going to go home and do that with their wife and stuff like that too, right? So you've got some issues, right? And then a lot of times, especially men in India who are in that category of being in their 50s, 60s, multi-generational homes. So they've got kids that are relying on them. They are often the main primary breadwinner. They might even have like other siblings living in the same home, or they might have like a compound where it's like, okay, my brother and his wife live over here in this wing of the house, and we're in this wing of the house.
Yeah.
Grandma and grandpa around. So again, they don't have a lot of comfort to talk about these things
Yeah.
openly, right? So there's nobody in their personal life, nobody in their work life that they can talk to. So I just started just creating space. I'm just like, tell me like what's on your mind. And then just shut my mouth and listen, right? Just listening to them. So because of those back-to-back conversations, then I was really just pondering on it and really praying on it, Mary. I'm just like, what? I'm like, because here I am. I'm like, in the United States, there's no way in God's green earth I'm getting on a plane and flying to India. It's just not going to happen, right? They're not going to let me in the country, you know? And so, and then also coming back to the United States, who wouldn't let me back in, right? Because of just,
Right.
just what was going on. So I'm like, okay, what can I do? And so anyhow, again, pondering on it, just really thinking, how can I be helpful to these people? What's going on here? And then I had a 3 a.m. with God moment. And he said, it's time to have a call for compassion. It's time for you to write the book. Mary, this is my first book. It's not like I've been writing a ton of other books before this. I've been thinking about books I can write. I mean, I just know so much stuff about being a great leader and being a good human being. But it was finally God's like, this is the time, Jen. You need to write this book. And it needs to be Call for Compassion. And I got a just beautiful divine download in the middle of the night. And I jotted it down because I'm wise enough to know if I don't write it down, I'm not going to remember in the morning. So I wrote these things down. And then it just all came together just so beautifully. So when I woke up, so it was like 3 o'clock in the morning, something. And then a few hours later, I get up and I went to the computer and I thought, okay, I always like to do my due diligence. Like, has somebody already written the book, right, with the title? Does the website already exist? It didn't exist anywhere, Mary. And so I purchased callforcompassion.com. I secured, whatever assets that I needed to so I could have the Call for Compassion, all the social media stuff, things like that. And then I just got to work writing the book. And so, it flowed. It absolutely flowed. And it took me a while to get it done. And then it goes through editing and the whole bit and,
Yeah.
all of these, pieces and parts. And what I love about the book is that you're right. The book isn't about main society, main stage kind of stuff, right? It's not about that. It is so much more about we need to have compassion for ourselves first, and then we can have
Yeah.
compassion for other people. And throughout the book, there's a story of this guy named Tom Anderson. I know I
Yes,
use
and
my
the bicycle. I love the story.
totally. Yes. So,
And the son is like, what do you mean we're going to take a junk, broken
yeah,
apart bike?
right,
This
right.
is my gift? Serious?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So the book basically opens up with Tom has a son named Matt, and it's Matt's 8th birthday, and Matt is getting his first big boy bicycle. So dad says, jump in the truck, son, we're going to go get your bike. And they're driving down Main Street and they pass up the bike store. And Matt's like, Dad, you passed up the store. What's going on?
Yeah.
And his dad just keeps driving. And Tom takes him to a dump basically at the end of town and says, we're going to find your bike here. And here's this little 8-year-old kid thinking,
Yeah,
what?
he's like devastated. Like,
Devastated, right? Exactly.
yeah.
And then the book covers. So compassion actually is an acronym. So C is communication, O is open-minded, things like that. And so every chapter is a different piece related to that acronym. And what happens is that Tom teaches his son Matt about compassion while they are restoring a bicycle. And the underlying story to that, Mary, is all about you can take something that's seemingly broken, the whole phrase, one man's trash is another man's treasure, right? But you can take something that's broken down. It seems like, screw it, we're just going to dump it off at the dump. There's nothing left here. What's the point? You can take something that's that bad and you can restore it. And I think that's really important because sometimes for us as individuals, the mental crap we say to ourselves, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, we are so mean to ourselves, right? But then also the things that we say about each other, like gossiping in workplace, right? Or just there's so much negativity out there. It's like, wait, we don't have to stay in that space. This can morph and this can absolutely do a 180 and be restored to something even better and more magnificent, which by the end of the book, Matt ends up with a killer custom bike just to him that is so fun. Anyhow, but he teaches.
I just love the concept of it. And, at one point you said in the beginning, in your intro, that why is it that we oftentimes have compassion at home and not in our workplace? And
Sure.
my experience, since I owned my own company, my
Yeah.
experience was just the opposite. Why couldn't I have compassion at home like I was creating in my workplace?
Yes.
So it's when you have that misalignment that's always so difficult.
Right.
And
So
I love how you went through and talked about, really opened my eyes to the compassion that we have available to give. It's not about creating this place so that we can receive. It is about this place that we can give. And I caution people all the time that you can't just give one, you can't just be giving, you have to also be receiving.
yeah, sure.
But the
Yep.
way that you wrote this book really, it brought to my awareness, Jen, the old parable of you cannot judge until you've walked in another man's shoes.
Sure. Yeah.
And there have been a lot of those commercials this season on the TV about, some walking in and you make some judgment about somebody and then, you come to find out, oh, their mother's dying of cancer. And there's just tons of commercials like that.
Yeah.
But bring to us to the place of, there are so many times that I'm sure I make these judgment critical calls of people. And if I just stood back for a moment and saw them with
Yeah.
those eyes of God, those eyes of oneness, that I could feel compassion for them.
Yeah.
Jen,
Right.
as we end our time now, with thinking that I've got 85% of my listeners who are women, and what would you say is your one wake up for them that you'd like to leave with them as to their step into this call for compassion?
Yeah. Oh, good question. I think that compassion looks different at different seasons in our life. And I think that we need to be real about what season that we're in and what compassion needs to look like at that time. Mary, you've got the luxury of being a grandma, right? You can look back on all these different seasons, right?
Yeah.
And you remember what it was like when you had like littles in the house and you're just like, I need a break. Like I just need to get out of the house alone without mom, all that stuff, right? And now like you would be dying to have your grandkids around you, playing and
Yeah.
hanging out, and I know
All
you
day
love.
long,
Right,
absolutely.
for sure. And so what I'm getting at is, ladies, honor where you're at. Like, what is your season right now? And then find the solution that you need right now to support yourself. And then it's going to change. And I think that that's another big piece too, is that people expect like one silver bullet's just going to last for forever. It's like, no, it's going to look a little bit different, and that's okay. That is all right. And don't try to have just the one blanket answer for all of the things. Unlikely. Well, and I know for myself too, it's like, why isn't this thing working? And it's like, oh, because like things have changed. Like, I have to recognize whatever that solution was before is different, right? I'm 50 now. My body feels different. Exercise looks different. It's going to look different when I'm 71. I'm going to look like you when I'm 71, Mary. But anyhow,
Absolutely.
yes.
Whatever that is. But it's, it is that constant morphing. As you know, that I've gone through this physical transformation and the work at creating a strong, healthy, fit body. And after all of that, I was standing looking at myself in the mirror the other day and said, this body is shifting even now. There's this pooch thing that's hanging out on the front of my belly that no matter how many sit-ups I do, no matter how many crunches, it's just there. And the little love handles I worked so hard to get rid of now just seem to be there again. You know what I mean? And I haven't gained any weight. It's just a shift and a morph.
Right.
And to be able to come to that point of just sitting in acceptance and love of myself, and then I can do that for others as well.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Absolutely. And then maybe we give each other a break, right?
Yeah.
Hello, benefit of the doubt,
Yeah. That we're all doing our very best, and our best might be different.
Exactly.
But I believe that at every point in time, that whatever we are in is that person's very best. And it allows me to have more compassion for them.
Yeah.
I go to these jazz games and we are in this Toyota club where it's an all you can eat kind of a thing. And I just see these people like, this is my all I can eat kind of thing of all food's bad for you. All food's bad for you. Sometimes I find myself slipping into that and thinking, seriously, do you need that big of a plate of macaroni and cheese? I mean, seriously. But then I just have to kind of come back and say, they're creating the very best they can right now. And that would be like death for me. But for them, it's allowing them some comfort space for where they are.
Right.
Jen, you are so insightful into creating this brand thing. I hope every single person listening And most of my listeners are in that 45 to 65 range who like are ready to rebrand or discover their brand, and that you would be such an asset for them. So please, ladies and men, I don't want to disavow you 15%, love you to the death, to go and look at what you want to create now in the next decade of your life, in the next decade. And what is your brand? You have so many tools for people to use. Wow. Thank you for sharing your time with us today. And I would encourage everyone to look at these things that she has. And if you're curious about the next step, reach out and contact or buy the book, A Step Towards Compassion, a call for compassion. And it begins with ourselves. Jen, have the rest of this day be a beautiful day. And I'm going to be more aware of my own compassions. I'm thinking about the luncheon I'm going to next. And I want to sit in that luncheon, not sharing all the great things about me. I want to sit in that luncheon full of compassion for every single woman that's there.
Wonderful. I love it. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you for your insight and for your love. You are a brilliant light. Keep shining in Missouri.
I will, darling. You bet.
All right. Thanks so much for your time. And to all of our listeners, it's time to get really clear on what is your personal brand. What is the world see when they see you? And thanks for being with us today.
Crafting a Meaningful Life.